Turning now to South Sudan, I will begin by drawing our attention to the tremendous progress the country has made in implementing the peace agreement, and particularly Chapter 1 of the governance argument. Now, we are talking about South Sudan with government, with coalition government, and moving with all its challenges ahead. I would, however, like to emphasize that the successful implementation of Chapter 2, which is very important, on the paramount ceasefire and transitional security arrangement will mark a turning point for the peace process in South Sudan. It is issues around the implementation of provisions of the chapter that triggered an internal dispute with SPLM-IO and resulted in clashes in the border area of Jabal Meghins in August of this year. IGAD immediately engaged with the parties to the internal disputes and encouraged the opinion of avenues and dialogue. Our engagement established that the unification and redeployment of the necessary unified forces is an urgent priority to the Republic of South Sudan. In this regard, IGAD, in conjunction with our partners on the ground, is providing a necessary political support and have called upon the revitalized transitional government to allocate and avail the required financial and material resources for this undertaking. IGAD similarly called upon the international community to lift those sanctions that are obstacles to the effective implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. IGAD also welcomes the recent overturns of His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni alongside Kenyan Special Envoy to South Sudan and the Troika partners to hold the long overdue retreat for the leadership of South Sudan as a confidence-building measures to accelerate the implementation of the peace agreement. Your Excellencies, at this point, I want to thank the Special Envoy of IGAD to South Sudan, Ambassador Wais, who is working for the last 4 or 5 years tirelessly representing our organization and also the effort of our leaders. In Somalia, also led in convening and coordinating partners to prevail upon the leadership and peaceful resolve disputes across in the run-up of election. With this upcoming election, Your Excellencies, Somalia stands at the crossroad of destiny. They symbolize a historic moment in the country's road to revival, recovery, and renaissance. Whilst the process of the upper house was completed successfully last month, the process for the lower house is ongoing, with the IGAD looks forward to the successful conclusion. IGAD has been supporting the democratic transition and remains fully committed to assist the people and the government of Somalia to avert any regression to conflict and instability. We have a confidence on the leadership of Somalia and the people of Somalia. They can really prevail on the situation that they are moving. For Somalia, the most important task that we are looking is this election, democratic election, which fulfill the will of the people of Somalia. To counterbalance, Your Excellencies, the challenges we have been experiencing in peace and security, I am gratified to note that IGAD has also recorded some opportunities and successes. First and foremost, since election is one of the reflection of democracy, I want to commend Djibouti, Kenya, and Uganda have remained authors of peace and amidst the turbulence that has affected the region. IGAD takes this opportunity to congratulate His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni and the people of Uganda holding peaceful election in January. IGAD further applauds our host country and His Excellency President Ismail Gile for the fresh mandate accorded to him, lead the nation by the people of Djibouti in April. In the same vein, IGAD congratulates His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali for his successful and democratic elections held in Ethiopia during the month of June this year. The upcoming election in Somalia and Kenya, Your Excellencies, dear brothers and sisters, will serve as a litmus test of how deep constitutionalism has taken root in our region. As IGAD, we wish the government and the people of Kenya and Somalia peaceful, democratic, and successful elections which for the coming time. IGAD is optimistic that democratic principles will continue to be upheld and the practice of peaceful resolution of disputes through legal channels will be further entrenched to all electoral process in the region. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind this gathering that we are all stakeholders in peace building. This is why I am also pleased to acknowledge the efforts at the grassroots level that IGAD has initiated to complement the high-level peace-building intervention that I have previously mentioned. Especially, I want to commend the efforts that we have doing in Somalia at the grassroots of peace building. And also, I want to thank our special envoy, Ambassador Guyo, who is working tirelessly to assist our brothers and sisters in Somalia. The IGAD, we say, Your Excellency, there cannot be real peace, security, or prosperity without women and youth. We are working on our half part of our population, that is women, by reorganizing our departments who really engaged the youth and the women who will be the determinant factors of the society, especially in our region, which is more than 65% of the population is youth. I am therefore delighted to connect with our new efforts to build peace and blow through initiatives such as the IGAD Youth and Women Forum for Peace, young poets and filmmakers who as peace ambassadors are working to counter the radicalization of our youth. I also welcome the formulation of prevention diplomacy and mediation protocol, which will further enhance our capacity to intervene in the situation of conflict. Excellencies, let me turn into the other developments issues in our region. I will begin with coronavirus, which has been with us now for 2 long years. Over this period of prevalence of the disease has risen 4 times, with infections increased from 250,000 this time last year to almost 900,000 at this time. In this also claimed 4 times as many as our brothers and sisters, from 5,000 at this time last year to 20,241 this year in our region. In keeping my period so far in office, we are now in our 2nd year of implementing the regional emergency response strategy to COVID-19. Here, with the tremendous support of our partners from the European Union, the African Development Bank, and GIZ, among others, we have logged an equal number of successes and challenges. On one hand, this response strategy has made remarkable progress in identifying our most vulnerable population spread across 45 cross-border intervention sites in 7 countries of our member states. The strategy has reached more than 1.9 million people to deliver 6.2 million PPEs and 177,000 test kits. Additionally, IGAD has been facilitating the delivery of critical equipments consisting of 22 modern ambulances, 7 field utility vehicles, 7 mobile laboratories, and 40 PCR machines, which we have distributed to all our member states. This equipment is supplementing in the capacity of our member states for the prevention, testing, and tracking of the coronavirus in cross-border areas. These efforts are critical at the time when our region, and indeed the African continent, is still far behind the rest of the world in vaccination. As we speak, my brothers and sisters, the average rate of vaccination in IGAD region stands at only 6.6%. This is against the global average of 42.7%. That means 7 times more than we have vaccinated over people. So we are far beyond from the average. More worryingly, Your Excellencies, according to our continental health authorities, Africa has recorded an 83% increase in infection this past week alone. That has been attributed to the Delta and newly emerging Omicron variant of COVID-19 that is reportedly more transmissible and resistant to selected vaccines. I am therefore compelled to caution that, bearing these factors in mind, IGAD and Africa at large is now perhaps even more vulnerable than before the worst effects of the pandemic, not only in terms of pandemic, but also the effects in economy, employment, and other social issues. At the point in my address, I would therefore like to issue a special call to our partners to sit with us once more as we review our interventions and adjust them toward responding to what is most needed by our people with the context of emergency situation. We must therefore remain faithful to our original intention to strengthen our health systems, to have adequate capacity to cope with this and other pandemics. There is no alternative to enhancing the regional capability to test, trace, and vaccinate the most vulnerable sections of our population. And this is because none of us is safe until all of us, without exception, is safe. Alongside conflict and COVID, the twin threats and drought and flooding, which combined pose a significant threat to our food security status of our region. My brothers and sisters, the IGAD component of 2021 Global Report on Food Crisis concludes that an estimated 37.2% or 27.2 million, or 1 out of every 7 people, are expected to be acutely food insecure in our region. The cocktail of climate change, conflict, and COVID therefore continues to drive displacement in our region as a consequence of the challenges they pose to the physical, economic, and social security of our region. In the IGAD region, at approximately 5%, we have one of the highest rates of displacement, that is totaling 12.3 million people, which consisting of 4.2 million refugees and 8.1 million internally displaced persons. In order to mitigate these challenges, Your Excellencies, IGAD recognized the need for a comprehensive response strategy that is designed to simultaneously and effectively address multiple and mutually reinforcing hazards as they emerge. I am encouraged by the effort IGAD made in 2021 to originate a regional disaster risk management strategy. In October this year, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta launched the IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center in Nairobi, Kenya, which houses a state-of-the-art weather forecast and modeling unit and disaster operations center, which belongs to our member states and which really serves our member states fully and daily. The information generated by the center significantly enhanced our multi-hazard early warning and response capabilities and is being used by member states and partners to anticipate, predict, and mitigate climate change and related natural disasters, such as flood, drought, and pests, such as desert locust. IGAD has every intention for further building this capacity by establishing similar disaster monitoring situation units across all our member states in 2022 and beyond. In the same time, IGAD has been putting in place policy assets and robust mechanisms to stimulate economic development in the region and, where possible, reserve the outward flow of migration. 2 weeks ago, I was delighted to preside in Alisebe, Djibouti, over the launching of a $4.2 million project of infrastructural development and livelihood support targeting refugees and host communities in our region. Altogether, projects such as the supported by the policy instruments such as the Protocol on Free Movement and Transhuman, the Regional Infrastructural Master Plan, or Blue Economy Strategy, among many others, are the building blocks through which we will build our regional structure and deliver on our commitment to the continental integration agenda through the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Your Excellencies, this brings to my intention for the next 2 years, and here I will classify them into 2 categories. Let me start with the exterior category, and this speaks to how the IGAD region responds to prevailing challenges, presents itself, and is perceived by the world. The fundamental priorities in this instance are threefold. The first priority is restoration of peace, security, and stability in our region. This is because it's a bedrock upon which all other interventions to be built upon. IGAD commits to continue working in tandem with our member states and like-minded partners to realize a peaceful outcomes to active conflicts in the region. The second priority is effective prediction, prevention, and response to slow and sudden onset disasters. Already, IGAD has the making of a disaster response strategy, and following the launch of the Disaster Operations Center in Nairobi on the 27th of October this year, further commits to animate the disaster fund that was endorsed by 38th Extraordinary Assembly of IGAD Heads of State Government in December 2020. The third priority is regional integration from below, using the principle of manageable installments. It is my intention, Your Excellencies, to inspire the formulation of IGAD-owned and IGAD-led projects that will accelerate our regional integration and at the community level and complete existing initiatives that have been generously funded by our partners, and also will help us to prioritize based upon the will and need of our member states. This approach constitutes the primary thrust to our intention to take IGAD to the people by directing a fraction of the resources we mobilize from our member states toward projects that directly benefit our citizens. For instance, in the Mandera Triangle, I was particularly impressed by the level of regional integration and community interdependence through shared health facilities that bring together the people of Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia to one hospital, which bring all the patients from these countries and give a common service. So this kind of interventions really will bring more closer our member states and the people. However, the lack of usable bridge spanning to the river of Dawa limits the ability of the community to full advantage of the available health facilities. IGAD has undertaken to work closely with the national and international authorities and partners to address this gap in regional integration. Looking inward at the interior category of intention to the next 2 years, my brothers and sisters, I find that the roadmap for reform and revitalization that I shared with you a year ago during my inaugural State of the Region address remain sufficiently comprehensive to guide us in this regard. Last year, I methodically reported on the far-reaching reform agenda that we formulated to systematically transform IGAD into an organization for 21st century. The reform initiatives focus creating a conducive environment for the implementation of new IGAD strategy plan that is 2021-2025, which we will launch here today. IGAD expects that the 6 pillars that support the architecture of the strategy will act as both a blueprint and guideline for the upcoming reporting period between 2030 and 2063. With this time frame, we shall be taking stock of the extent in which we have fulfilled our shared aspirations as articulated in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and African Union Continental Transformation and Integration Agenda. This is the logic that inspired us to break the tradition, and instead of formulating a short 5-year strategy, we elected to think bigger, longer, and further. As a consequence, IGAD Regional Strategy Plan 2021 to 2025 is the first in a series of 6 sub-strategies, each running for 5 years, that are to be subsequently implemented toward the grand vision of IGAD 2050. I am encouraged by the scale of our ambition and our deliberate decision to prepare and plan for the next generation by casting our eyes 30 years ahead. It is our intention, Your Excellencies, to accelerate the process of setting a firm foundation for the security, development, and prosperity of the estimated 400 million people that will be living in our region by 2050. The 7 principal priorities under the reform initiative include: number 1, revamping the human resource structure and improving internal human resource capacity; digital transformation of the IGAD Secretariat; construction of the new IGAD headquarters; instituting the IGAD Cancer Center of Excellence; establishing the implementation and awards and scholarship programs for our regional users and all people who really need this; creating the IGAD Committee of eminent personalities who really work on different areas in political, diplomacy, and other social issues, and qualifying for EU pillar assessment in order to directly manage funding from our partners. Let me begin with the brick and mortar project. Last year, I was pleased to have hosted the IGAD chair, His Excellency Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok, at the groundbreaking ceremony for the new IGAD headquarters in Djibouti. This year, we successfully completed the structural design of the building, which represents the face of the region. With the building now provisionally cost us $55.4 million, I will be delighted to formally launch this call for construction bids today in this podium. In April of this year, we broke ground on the IGAD Cancer Center of Excellence that will be in Addis Ababa, and we are aggressively building partnership for this funding and operation. I want to thank the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the leadership there for allocating the IGAD Cancer Center as a prime peace land in the capital city, valued at over $200 million. Most importantly, I want to thank the initiators of this center, who are a diasporas of these member states, the specialists who have extensive knowledge and experience on this area, who initiated this thing, the sons and daughters of this region. So I want to thank them for this initiative. I also express my sincere gratitude to the IGAD Partners Forum and the Royal Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who generously assisted us on this process. In the realm of building intellectual capacity in our region, today we will be also formally launching, Your Excellencies, a call for application for first 300 scholarship that will support the students from vulnerable communities to have access to higher education at the International University of Africa in Khartoum, Sudan, and Kampala International University in Uganda. This scholarship program will be our flagship project for integration through education, bringing the young citizens of this region to one university and to one plan to integrate them and to be friends. Most of us have experience of this, and that will be a lasting friendship that can be turned into a friendship which bond a friendship between countries and communities. To strengthen the ability of IGAD to drive our efforts to peace building from below and safeguard the prospect of our security and stability, I am pleased to announce in this address the launch of the IGAD Leadership Academy. I am confident that with the support of the member states and partners, the IGAD Leadership Academy will grow into a house that brings together, grooms and nurtures the next generation of leaders who will steer our region to even greater heights of harmony and progress. As you know very well, leadership is the most important component of the society to bring that society to the highest level. So I'm pleased that this academy will bring together our crème of the leaders, the young leaders who can work together, who can learn together and finally share experience on this area. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you most certainly appreciate, the scale of our ambition can only be attained if we are able to marshal the resource to realize it. I am happy to report that during my time in office, IGAD has witnessed a tremendous improvement in the level of political will and financial commitment by our member states, many of whom are meeting their obligations in full and on time. However, there is still room for improvement. In order for IGAD to shore up our credibility as a rules-based organization and build our capacity to complement the effort of our generous partners, it is imperative that the burden of responsibility is equitably shared by all our member states. At this juncture, I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and sincerely appreciate the support of our firm friends and partners, including the European Union and its members, the World Bank, African Development Bank, and UN agencies, as well as members of the IGAD Partners Forum and Troika countries. Thank you for your collaboration and support. IGAD is also thankful for the cordial relation and bilateral ties we enjoy with the new emerging partners who really are working very closely with us. Excellencies, I will conclude this year's annual address with the observation that our collective desire to prevail over the most difficult of circumstances is what has come to define us through the decades. We cannot change the geography of our region, and we cannot choose our neighbors. In other words, the maps cannot redraw themselves. We are bound now and for the all time by the geographic, cultural, and economic ties that bind us, and we are inseparably connected to each other. This means, Your Excellencies, my brothers and sisters, we stand a better chance of overcoming our difficulties and thriving if we pool our resources and efforts only and only if together. Thank you very much.
Please, let's give His Excellency another applause of a crowd. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Your Excellency, as you can see from the audience, the distinguished audience, you have received a standing ovation for giving us a very comprehensive state of the region. You have been able to look at the things that we have been able to accomplish under your leadership, but also you have guided us into the future. Colleagues, I don't want to actually even dare attempt that I would even summarize His Excellency's address. But for me, as I sat, it has helped me in several ways. I meet people who ask me, what is IGAD doing? Especially when we have challenges in our member states. His Excellency, thank you very much, because you have outlined the quiet diplomacy that you are involved in day, day out to try and ensure that we have a stable and secure region. And this goes to what His Excellency has articulated, that for IGAD we don't use public diplomacy, we use quiet diplomacy, and His Excellency has been excellent in it. Priorities, you have really outlined them, and I don't want to get into them, but I'm touched because you have reminded me of a book I read, The Trouble with Nigeria by Chinua Achebe. And for those who have read that book, he says the trouble with Nigeria is leadership. And we would say perhaps the trouble that we have, not just in our region, but globally, is a challenge of leadership. And therefore, I'm sure, colleagues, you're excited as I am, that IGAD will have a leadership academy to nurture young leaders. Your Excellency, thank you very much. Now, colleagues, we wanted to get into session 3, and His Excellency has really guided us as we move to session 3. In his address, he has outlined that under his leadership, we have come up with an IGAD strategy that covers the next 5 years, 2021 to 2022. And this it's a building block as we get into looking at IGAD in the next 30 years in the Vision 2050. I now want to request my colleagues, Awira and Rachel, we want this strategy to be launched before you. As we said, this is a strategy that as we meet, you'll be holding us accountable if we have been able to implement it. But we will be implementing it together with our member states, with community leaders. I therefore request Anthony symbolically to come with Rachel. Anthony Awira is the director planning, and Rachel works in the same division. His Excellency is going to sign a copy of the strategy, and once he signs the copy of the strategy, we will be requesting him to give a copy to each of our member states and each of the community leaders who are present. So I want to ask His Excellency, the first country to receive the strategy is Djibouti. Please, the Ambassador of Djibouti. I request Ambassador, just come stand close to His Excellency. The next is Ambassador of Ethiopia. The next is Ambassador of Somalia. The Ambassador of Kenya. The Ambassador of South Sudan. The Ambassador of Sudan. The Ambassador of Uganda. Colleagues, still in the spirit of taking IGAD to the local community and to the people, we have few representatives from the community. I would ask Madam Betty Romunia, please come and receive a copy of the strategy on behalf of the Karamoja cluster in Uganda. Mr. Ibrahim Mohammed Ali, on behalf of the cluster in northern Kenya, Mandera in particular. Madam Dinka Sukare Godana, on behalf of the cluster in Ethiopia. Mr. Gured Jama Wed, on behalf of the cluster in Djibouti. I request you display that for the photo as a show of commitment that we will be implementing this in the next 5 years, working with our member states, the communities, and our friends and partners. Please. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. You may sit. Colleagues, now I want to call upon His Excellency, as he has mentioned in his State of the Region address, is that we are now, and we are going to request him to launch the bid for those who are interested to work with IGAD to help us build the ultra-modern headquarters in Djibouti, as His Excellency has outlined in his speech. This is going to be an extraordinary building that is going to house all our programs in Djibouti under one roof. And therefore, we want to encourage both regional, international bidders. We hope the best in that spirit of transparency and accountability. You will all be able to bid. But we encourage our people from the region to bid. We would be happy if we get one of our own building this, because it will really we will be able to meet the standards. So I would like to request Your Excellency to come so that you're able to